Council meeting for Monday, October 16th. Can everyone please rise? Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a special presentation tonight, the 2023 Mayor's Stewardship Award. I will come down to the microphone. Step forward.
Mr. Overholt, Mr. Offerman, you can step forward. I'll meet you over there.
Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations. The Stewardship Award is a program of the Economic Development Advisory Board, where they receive nominations once a year, and then the board members visit each nominated property and evaluate the outside of the properties based on their historic significance, contribution to the community, and a host of different criteria. This year, the property selected by the board is owned by Johann Offermans and Carl Overholt at 148 East State Street. They have recently moved to the borough and have undertaken a project to remove lead paint and restore the 1870 home to its original exterior colors. And I have a little memorial for you on that. Stewardship Award. I think you can mount it wherever you want. Yeah. You look here and get a picture. Thank you. Thank you.
For me, it's strange to find myself here.
Why is that?
Well, I grew up in Michigan.
Okay. I grew up in New York, and here I
Okay,
am.
well,
You want to do the microphone?
about 8 years ago, I moved here after living in Switzerland.
Oh, okay.
Well, then I found out, back in the day, my ancestors moved to Bucks County from Switzerland. They were Mennonites.
Oh,
I
interesting.
had not known.
That's a very interesting, complete circle.
It's the only place I've ever lived that for some people with my last name.
Oh,
They're
interesting.
still over.
Okay.
That's
All
true.
right.
And a couple of streets.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Great
Thank
time,
you.
by the way.
Long way back up here.
Not as young as you used to be.
No, that's true, too. The next item on our agenda is the approval of minutes from our September 16th, 2023 council meeting. We'll have a motion to approve.
Move.
We'll have a second. There was a motion by Wendy Margolis and a second by Joe Frederick. Any questions or comments from any members of council? Hearing none. Any questions or comments from any members of the public? Hearing none, I'd like to call a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The mayor is not with us tonight, so we will not have a mayor's report. Public safety, Mr. Frederick.
Yes, Mr. President, we have an ordinance tonight in consideration of ordinance number 2023-11, handicap parking spaces on West Ashland Street, West Oakland Avenue, and Franklin Street. Attached, please find ordinance number 2023-11, which removes the handicap parking spot on West Ashland Street at South Hamilton Street, creates a handicap parking spot on West Oakland Avenue at Franklin Street, and creates a handicap parking spot on Franklin Street at West Oakland Avenue. Council, at its September 8th, 2023 meeting, authorized the drafting advertisement of the ordinance, and the ordinance has since been properly advertised. The Public Safety Committee is recommending that council adopt ordinance number 2023-11. If council wishes to follow the recommendation, it can do so by motion, and I so move. Second.
We had a couple of seconds in there. I think it was Larry I heard first. Larry Brown. Any questions or comments from any members of council? Hearing none. Any questions or comments from any members of the public? Hearing none, I'd like to call a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The second thing is the Doylestown Fire Company report, which everyone has in their packet. And that is the end of my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Frederick. Public Works,
Can I just say for, I know there are some people interested here, Public Works will be attempting to install these new handicap spaces here in the fall. We have to order signage and have to get a paint crew out there, but we're hoping to get it done in the next month or so. All right, sounds good. You're welcome.
you're welcome. Public Works and Administration, Mr. Brown, what do you have for us tonight?
We didn't meet this month. I will pass it over to Mr. Erlinger after saying that the park, which we opened tonight, is certainly one of the finest things I think that Public Works has ever had a hand in, and congratulations to everybody that was involved in it.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. And we are all proud of the work, and the crew really enjoyed building that playground. It was a good team building exercise, as well as we built a beautiful playground. Leaf collection commenced this week, actually today. There are not a lot of leaves down, but we started Area 1 today, and then we'll move on from there. So that's, other than that, we've been doing some road work and some other storm sewer work. So that's the end of my report.
That's all I've got, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Community and Government Affairs, Mr. Bell, do you have anything for us tonight?
Thank you, Mr. President. Community and Governmental Affairs did not meet, so I have nothing for council consideration. However, I do want to point out that on October 28th is the Borough Spooktacular. Starts 9:30 at the old courthouse, the administration building on the lawn. Wear costumes. There'll be a costume judging contest and then a parade through town. And any merchant with black and orange balloons in the storefront is fair game for trick-or-treating. I don't see a lot of trick-or-treaters here in the live audience, but I'm sure some of you know some. So please pass that along, and thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Zoning,
President,
Yeah.
I add that we're still looking for a couple of council judges for the costume.
okay. Zoning and Planning, Ms. Jarrett, you have a few things for us?
I do. We did meet this week. First on the agenda is the, from the Borough Building and Zoning Department. It's a proposed zoning amendment from Doylestown Township for development at 280 North Broad Street. We had I guess we call it a letter, a report written up by staff, and I'm just going to read that. It says, the Doylestown Township Board of Supervisors at its November 21st, 2023 meeting will be considering an amendment to its zoning ordinance. The ordinance proposed in response to a development request from Arcadia Land Company and Penrose Development at 280 North Broad Street creates and defines a new use permitting a combination of high-density multifamily housing along with twins and townhomes in the township's LI, or light industrial zoning district. This use requires that a formula-driven number of dwelling units be deed restricted as income-qualified senior units. Given the location of the township's LI zoning district and available land within that district, the property eligible for this proposed use will likely be limited to 280 North Broad Street and perhaps one other property along Broad Street. These properties are surrounded by Fred Bean's parts truck loading docks, a wastewater treatment plant, a 24-hour self-storage facility, and Thompson Detail Center. The Arcadia property, the source of the proposed zoning amendment, is located across from and offset from Broad Street's intersection with Atkinson Drive. The proposed driveway would be located a few car lengths from the traffic signal, limiting the ability to exit the site safely. Due to concerns regarding land use compatibility and housing equity, traffic impact, driveway geometry, water system availability, and emergency services access, Borough staff recommends that the proposed zoning amendment and development be evaluated for consideration by Borough Council, and if appropriated, communicated to the Township Board of Supervisors. Zoning and Planning Committee recommends that Council authorize staff, the solicitor, and engineer to evaluate the proposal and prepare a report. If council is in agreement, it may do so by motion, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion. I heard a couple of seconds in there. I think it was Dennis. Yeah. Any questions or comments from any members of council?
Yeah, Mr. President, I have questions. So I see the long list of concerns, and they're all legitimate and well thought out. I'm sure just for my own information, what's the specific concern regarding housing equity?
Let's, the issue, if I could respond. The, the issue was that in planning, there is a concern that people of less potential societal power are often pushed in the planning process to less desirable and less healthy built environments. And that's considered, you know, inequitable. So the feeling was that this site being bounded by a sewer treatment plant and the potential odors from that being next to an adjacent loading dock, which has 24-hour security lighting and extensive truck traffic, was not necessarily the fairest place to put veterans, and that it's not necessarily fair to the people of low income who otherwise don't have as much freedom of choice as far as where they can live, to put them in a location that is not necessarily desirable for housing. So that's where that phrase came from.
Understand, thank you. And then my second and final question, is the concern about water availability because of the location of the project or because of the capacity of the borough?
The capacity of the borough is the only thing we can speak to.
Okay.
Any other questions from any members of council?
And I do want to note that the actual ordinance by the township is attached in everyone's packet if they need to see the details and drawings of that.
No other questions from council?
To Ben's point about the water, question about water availability or capacity or connection, maybe the term in the next last paragraph, water system availability, is not the availability that is a concern, right? It's the capacity question, right? Maybe it should reflect that.
Public water is physically available in that location, but
Yeah.
certainly what the demand will be and how it will impact our system or the DTMA system, you know, we have no information with regard to that at this point.
Right.
As you see, this is a two-step process. One is where these broad concerns will be addressed in the report, and we'll be able to bring you some more detail.
That's right, okay.
These are the things that on first blush, and from what we know, are obvious concerns. We may uncover new concerns. We may find that some of these things have been addressed. We may find some of these things are actually more acute of a problem than we think. But we do want to dig into this.
Yeah, understood, thank you.
No more questions from council? Any questions or comments from any members of the public? Hearing none, I'd like to call a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next, we have the zoning hearing board report, which I will leave to Ms. Highland.
Thank you, Ms. Jarrett. Excuse me. The zoning hearing board will be meeting later this week to hear 3 applications. The first is for 277 Maple Avenue. They're requesting an extension of their 6-month time period for a variance that had previously been granted. The same thing for 47 West Oakland Avenue, which is the second application on their agenda. They are also looking for an extension from their 6-month time limit. And 116 Mary Street, the applicant is proposing an addition off of the rear of the house. They are requesting floor area ratio and building coverage relief, both dimensional. They've also requested front yard setback relief, although my understanding is they intend to withdraw that because it is not necessary, and I agree with that.
Next up, we have the HARB recommendations. At its regular monthly meeting, the Borough of Doylestown Historical and Architectural Review Board, or HARB, recommended the following: a sign application for 21 East Oakland Avenue for a sign. The HARB recommended that that application be approved as presented. Next up for building applications were 75 West Ashland Street with renovations. The HARB recommended that the application be approved for a certificate of appropriateness with the following conditions: that the stucco be hand troweled and match the mortar of the existing stone of the building, that the door be half glass raised panel fiberglass, that the window placed next to the door be removed and relocated directly adjacent to the window nearest to the corner of the addition, that all windows be trimmed, that a frieze board be placed under the eave of the balcony, and that the fascia board be painted to match the stucco. Next is 189 South Main Street for windows. The HARB recommended that the application be approved for a certificate of appropriateness with the following amendments: that a split transom be installed, that mulled casements with simulated divided light be provided, and the space be broken into 5 equal windows, with each window divided in half vertically and in thirds horizontally, for a total of 6 panels per window. Last is 33 East Ashland Street for a renovation and addition, and the HARB recommended that the application be approved for a certificate of appropriateness as presented. The Zoning and Planning Committee recommends that council approve the applications in accordance with the HARB's recommendation, and if council wishes to follow the committee's recommendation, it can do so by motion, and I so move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from, I think it was Amy? Okay. Any questions or comments from any members of council? Hearing none. Any questions or comments from any members of the public? Hearing none, I'd like to call a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And finally, we have the code enforcement report, which is in everyone's packet, and that concludes my report.
Do we have a building inspection monthly report? It's on.
Oh, sorry, yes. So we have a code enforcement office report, and then we also have the building inspection report.
Thank you. Environment and Rec, Ms. Margolis, do you have anything for us tonight?
Thank you, Mr. President. We did not meet this month. I would just like to say that we really appreciate the borough's work in removing the leaves, but I would like to encourage everyone to consider leaving the leaves on your property to help the pollinators like butterflies and fireflies that use them for protection in the winter. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Ms. Margolis. Water Utility, Mr. Lavrone, what do you have for us tonight?
The Water Committee met in October, and we got a September operations report from our chief operator, Jerry Matoso, and everything is typical in that report. And then he also reported on the status of the Maplewood tank update, and that's scheduled to start. The actual work there is scheduled to start after the first of the year, February, March. But the water crew had a what Jeremy called a dress rehearsal at the end of September, checking everything out, looking at valves and piping and the distribution system for when the tank has to be shut down for a period of months to completely renovate it. And would also like to thank Councilman Brown for his great work on drone photographs of that site. And there's no actionable items this month for water utility, and that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Mr. Lavrone. Finance and Pension, Ms. Popkin.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have the first item, which is the amendment to the T-Mobile Maplewood cell tower lease, and I will read that amendment. Attached, you will find the First Amendment to the T-Mobile agreement for cell towers on the Maplewood standpipe, which is at 784 South Chubb Drive. T-Mobile submitted a renegotiated lease agreement in 2022, which was reducing the annual lease payments from $43,500 to $35,400 annually. We had been waiting for this agreement change, and they were finally received in September. The Finance and Pension Committee reviewed the agreement at our October 12th meeting, and we are recommending the acceptance of this. If council is in agreement, it can do so by motion. I do so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Ms. Margolis. Do we have any questions or comments from any members of council? Hearing none, I'd like to, are there any questions or comments from any members of the public? Hearing none, I'd like to call a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And then the next item is the finance report, and I'll turn that over to Ms. Brinker.
Thank you, Ms. Popkin. The bills list included in everybody's packet for tonight totals $1,926,036.36, and that's the total for all funds, prepaid, accounts payable, and payroll.
And I'd make a motion to accept that.
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Jarrett. And any questions or comments from any members of council? Hearing none. Any questions or comments from any members of the public? Hearing none, I'd like to call a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, and that's the end of the finance pension report.
Okay, and I have one item for action on the Personnel Committee. It's in your packet. Harb member Walter Kepler has resigned his board seat effective immediately. Mr. Kepler's resignation creates a vacancy which needs to be filled. The term will expire December 31st, 2024. If council wishes to authorize the advertisement of the Harb vacancy, it may do so by motion, and I so move.
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Brown. Any questions or comments from any members of council? Hearing none. Any questions or comments from any members of the public? Hearing none, I'd like to call a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Professionals report. Mr. Doherty, what do you have for us? Anything?
Thank you. I have nothing tonight.
Okay. Solicitors report. Mr. Griffin, do you have anything for us?
No report this evening.
Central Bucks Regional Police Department, Chief Knott, anything for us?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I do not have a president's report, but I would like to provide one comment. For those of you who may not be aware, we had the ribbon cutting for the new playground across the street at Broad Commons Park. I was pleasantly surprised by the number of people that showed up, and I think a lot of gratitude is due to Caitlin Hernandez for the work she did in advertising and promoting that event. And I also was pleasantly surprised by the kids that were there, even though it was a little difficult to speak at the microphone at times.
They almost trampled you.
Yeah, well, I'm used to it. I have 9 grandkids, you know. That concludes my report. Any items of old business? Hearing none. Any items of new business? Hearing none. Open public comment. Mr. Plummer, would you like to speak? Yes.
Thank you. I'm here tonight. I want to talk about War Memorial Field. And right now, the school district has closed it completely on weekends. And this has never happened before. They say it's because of vandalism, but I think the only vandalism they had was somebody in the bathroom broke the soap dish. So I don't consider that something that their budget that they can't handle. But going back to the history of War Memorial Field, it was established in 1946 through the donations from the residents of Doylestown Borough and Doylestown Township for the use, as Mayor Butler said at that time at the groundbreaking, it will be open to the general public to be used and enjoyed by all. Now, that includes me, includes everybody, and there's no reason it should be closed on the weekend. And because I know you have an agreement with the school district, but the school district didn't come into play until the 1950s. Up to that time, that was controlled by the borough, and it was used by Doylestown High School then. Doylestown High School played their football games and their field hockey games on the site of what's now Central Bucks West. Football field was in where the cafeteria is, and the field hockey was played on the corner of Lafayette and West Court Street. When they moved over, the borough donated that land for Central Bucks West when they consolidated in 1950. So what I'm asking here is, The borough owns War Memorial Field. They control it. The purpose was for the general public to use it, and the school district is closing it to the general public. And I would hope that the borough would get involved. It's only 2 days on the weekend from 7 to 7. That's it. A lot of people use it. I'm surprised you haven't gotten any calls from people. I've seen some people complain on Facebook. But that's my concern. I've been using it for over 50 years.
I think I can provide some context. Mr. Plummer's correct that the land there obviously is owned by the borough of Doylestown and was gifted to the borough as a living monument, an active monument by the veterans. There isn't a lease agreement with Central Bucks School District that dates to I believe the latest iteration is the early 1980s. It may even go back a little further. The lease speaks to the facilities, the stadium, track, bathrooms, locker rooms, which actually are owned, obviously were built by the school district. So we have an anomaly in that the structures and facilities on the property belong to the school district technically, and the land itself belongs to the borough. The lease, Part 3 of the lease requires that the facilities be accessible to the general public during the regular hours of operation of the school district. That's the language. And that is the language that's been invoked here to permit the closure of the stadium and track on Saturdays and Sundays. Currently, the hours of public access are 6 a.m., which is when custodians arrive, to 7 p.m., which is when practices end. So there is reasonable access during the week, but they are not permitting access on Saturdays and Sundays, and they do technically have the ability to do that under the current lease, and we can't stop it.
John, question. What was the reasoning? Was it vandalism? I mean,
I was told by Mr. Spencer that vandalism was a concern, and bathroom vandalism in particular. I am not versed on the extent of that vandalism. I think told it was more than one instance, but I can't vouch for exactly what the issue was. They also indicated that they were having difficulties with members of the general public using the track and the other facilities while West students were engaged in either games or practice. And for security reasons, they obviously don't want people running on the track while there's students at work. But none of that was quantified. But I did confirm that the lease did permit them to do what they were going to do. They cannot cut off access to the borough's playground and the basketball court that we own, but they do have the right to restrict access to the stadium outside their own business hours. I did remind them, obviously, of the history of the stadium. There had been some conflict, apparently, with the American Legion baseball, but they went ahead and made their decision and have posted the property as of, I believe, last week.
How long does the lease run?
It runs in perpetuity on an annual basis.
So annually, you could review it.
It could be, either party. I don't know the exact provisions of the renewal, but either party does have the opportunity to, at a certain day. I believe the deadline may have passed for next year, but I can confirm that. But there is an annual renewal that takes place unless one party, gives notice.
Okay.
John, have there been complaints before this, or is this all of a sudden? Chief, was there any reports for vandalism there at the?
No, nothing recently, and we've had no trespassing complaints there either.
Yeah, I would think I'd want to ask that question of Spencer.
You know, over the years, there's been occasions where they restricted access to the baseball field area, you know, by closing that gate and locking it, and we've had to remind them that, you know, those are our facilities in there, and they don't have the ability to do that, and, you know, those miscommunications have always been rectified.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems odd that all of a sudden, without any reports from the police that anything has happened, that, you know, you would think if they were complaining that things were broken and things were, you know, happening in the bathrooms, that they would have reported that to the authorities, instead of all of a sudden.
I didn't check to determine whether there were police reports on the vandalism.
Okay, I just,
But I will say that they did provide me with notice that, you know, they were gonna take this step.
right.
And to be aware that the signs were being posted so that we could, if we did get calls, we could at least explain it to the general public.
Yeah, all right, thank you, John.
So what do you do if somebody is on the field during the weekend? And it's, because kids, there's a certain way the kids can get in, but I'm a little too old for that. I can't do it. Maybe 50 years ago, but no way. But there's a way they get in all the time. And they haven't figured it out, but the kids are on there all. Are you going to, as police, are you going to go down and arrest them or?
Well, no, we would
Chase them, or?
we would certainly not arrest them. We would bring to their attention the new rules, show them the signage, and, you know, nicely ask them to leave. If we come back, you know, 10 minutes later, 20 minutes later, that's a different story. We're not in the business to arrest people for that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I know there has been at least one incident where adults climbed the fence. Thus far.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because they rent the field on the weekend on Sundays to a soccer group, and they let them bring their dogs in, and it's posted no dogs allowed on both fields, on the Petton field too. And so they have no problem letting dogs in, and they haven't moved them. So it's almost like if they rent it, that's fine. We want money. But if you live here, pay taxes, you can't.
They do have the right to rent the field for their own use during basically school district time of the year. During the summer, actually, conversely, the borough has the right, if it sees fit, to use the stadium. I wasn't aware that they were, in fact, my understanding was that they were excluding any kind of for-profit activity. That's my understanding, but
It's been there every Sunday.
there's not a notice requirement for that.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Nobody else has signed up. Nobody else has signed up. Nobody else has signed up.
I didn't realize I had to be here to sign up.
I'm sorry.
I'm usually here, and I mean, would it please you to just let me speak about, you know, keeping an eye on your new facility? I mean, fortunately, it is across the street from the police station, but there has been a lot of incidents of vandalism. One of my children works at the CVS in town, and they've had to close their bathroom because of the vandalism. And I just wanted to know if there was something that you could put out to the community to talk to your children. There might be adults that are vandalizing, but there is an increase. And I don't know what I mean, I did see the same report about War Memorial Field being closed, and I am, you know,
No means no.
about that either, but there are increased reports of vandalism throughout the area. So please just keep an eye on that beautiful park we just opened, because Central Park does get vandalized. They've had to install night lights and stuff like that to, you know, deter that kind of stuff. That's all I wanted to say. And
Thank you.
I'll sign in if you want me to.
It's too
Would you
late.
mind just signing in for the record?
Sure.
I'll just wait till the meeting adjourns.
Okay, all right, but I mean, you know, there are, you know, I mean, I was able to go to the bathroom at the CVS in Warrington, but my daughter, they blocked the doors.
We have no jurisdiction over what they do internally to their
No,
business.
I'm not saying that, I'm just saying in the borough CVS, like, it's being vandalized. Like, so there is increases of vandalism if, you know, like I said, if you could make some kind of, you know, notification to the public at large,
Well, thank you for expressing your concern. We do not have an executive session tonight, is that correct? I will entertain a motion to adjourn, so we can all get home and watch the motion.
Second?
A motion and a second by Mr. Brown. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
You heard you, Kurt.
This way, guys. We're over here. Hold on a second. I thought someone was gonna